Okay. All right.
Well, as is widely known, Tony Blair lied to the British people and to Parliament about what the French were saying in order to persuade us to back his war in Iraq. Now, I knew this at the time because when he talked about what Chirac had said in Parliament back in March 2003, I rang up the French embassy and got the text of Chirac's speech, and so I knew that Blair was misrepresenting him. But what I didn't know, until the Chilcot inquiry came along, was that from almost immediately after Chirac's speech on television, the French were in touch with the British, saying, "You've misunderstood this," which was a kind way of putting it, because in fact it's obviously a deliberate misrepresentation. So when I learnt about this, I got in touch with the Foreign Office under our Freedom of Information Act and said, I want to see these documents which were referred to in the Chilcot inquiry. And they refused, and then you have to go back to the Foreign Office a second time, and they refused a second time. So then you go to a man called the Information Commissioner, so I did that. And shortly after that, all the documents I'd asked for, which were contacts between Britain and France, were released, not because the Foreign Office had changed its mind, but simply because so much had come out already that there was no point in keeping them secret any longer. But one document had not been released, and that was the record of a telephone conversation between President Bush and Mr. Blair, in which apparently they had agreed to lay the blame on the French. So I said I wanted to see this. The Information Commissioner gave rather a funny judgment. He said, you can see the Foreign Office should disclose what Mr. Blair had contributed to this conversation, but not what President Bush had. Well, the Foreign Office didn't like this. So from the Information Commissioner, you can appeal to a body called the Information Tribunal. So the Foreign Office appealed to them saying, we don't want to disclose any of this. And I appealed saying, I want to see the whole thing, or I want the whole thing to be disclosed, not just for me, of course. However, the tribunal upheld the original decision, but now the Foreign Office has got another chance. You can appeal to a slightly higher court within the same tribunal, and you have to get permission to appeal, and that's what they've done. They've applied for permission to appeal to this higher court, and I have to decide whether to oppose this application or to accept it. I would be very pleased to let there be another appeal, so I put my arguments again, provided that the judgment could be delivered in time to help the Chilcot inquiry. But I'm not sure that it will be. So that's where we stand. But the important thing is that the reason the Information Commissioner gave for not revealing the whole, for not insisting that the whole document be revealed, the whole record of this telephone conversation, was that there was a short-term interest in finding out about it, because we want to know more about how the war started. But there was not a long-term interest. The long-term interest was keeping in with the Americans, because the Americans were our best ally, and they'd be very annoyed if this conversation was revealed. But my argument is there's a long-term interest as well, because a lot of people in the Foreign Office, for example, and elsewhere, and some of the advisors knew that Blair was lying about the French position, but they didn't do anything about it. Whereas the people who might have been able to do something about it, namely the MPs, didn't know. They didn't have the facts. So this seems to me there's a very grave institutional weakness in the way that Britain runs itself, and I want to see this corrected, and therefore I want to find out I want the nation to find out as much as we can about exactly what Blair and Bush cooked up together by way of an excuse for blaming the French.
And we discussed about the delay of the Chilcot inquiry in
Yes.
publishing its final report because of the friction between the Chilcot inquiry, the government, and the Foreign Office on the declassification of
Yes.
several classified documents, in addition to the Maxwellization process.
Yes.
What do you think about this?
Well, I think there may be other reasons too. I think that I don't think they'd realised when they set their original timetable just how much evidence they're going to hear and how much is going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's now inevitable. They will be delayed. I certainly don't think they are going to whitewash anything. I think they're very independent people and they're quite determined. I think my impression is they're probably quite shocked by what they found. And I suppose they have to go through this Maxwellization process. My only fear is that, and I suppose this is what the Foreign Office is trying to do, they're trying to delay the whole thing in order that people will lose interest with other things coming along, Afghanistan and so on and so forth. I don't think they'll be successful in that actually, but that is the risk, of course.
All right. So the next appointment will be in January.
In January, there's a hearing just to see whether the Foreign Office will be allowed to appeal, to make this
Right.
further appeal. If they are allowed, then presumably the appeal will be heard later in the year, and I'll present my arguments again and hope I have better luck this time. If, however, the Foreign Office fails, then my understanding is that the Foreign Office will then immediately have to reveal the part of this telephone conversation which they were ordered originally by the Information Commissioner to reveal.
And you're going to attend this session.
I'm going to attend, and I'm going to say, as I think I just mentioned, I'd be very happy for it to go to a further appeal, so I could have my chance again, but only if the whole thing could be held and the judgment delivered in time for Chilcot to make use of it. Otherwise, I prefer to have half than nothing.
Right. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Okay?